This one, bar admission. I tend to sit for the July 21 bar examination. That's the New York Law Examination, multi-state professional responsibility. Okay, most people pass the professional multi-state responsibility, so you don't need to put that up there, and you don't need to put that you're sitting for the bar. If you're trying to get a job in New York, it's actually just assumed that you'll be sitting, especially as a 2021. Some of the stuff like tax law society, I just recommend if your resume isn't really strong with saying you're the editor in chief of something, or you're doing something that really takes a lot of time, there's no need to put on things like tax law society and stuff, unless you're very interested in tax for some reason. This legal intern. So I don't know. So there's different schools of thought about the ways to, a lot of times, and I apologize, what's happening with some of the stuff is we're editing these resumes sort of for you before you see them, or we're copying them from PDFs. They're coming out and they could be a little bit, it needs some work in terms of whether we transfer them from PDFs to regular documents. Lots of legal interns work for 3 months. Okay, so you were a legal intern for 3 months. Okay. I don't know that you oversaw and reviewed things, and I just don't know. I would maybe just give a little description of the company and the type of work that they do, or just say general legal work, because this kind of is people want to know. You're giving people, like when people look at your resume, what happens is they start thinking in terms of this person doesn't have this experience. So just talking about that this is a whatever type of company, a couple of lines about assisted with legal work with this type of company. That's all you need to say. That's all I would do. Because when you start saying purchase and sale of future receivables, manage broker relationships, like no one's going to give someone who's in law school, the position of managing broker relationship, advising and underwriting, evaluating, overseeing purchase and sales of real. They're not going to give them that experience. So this language is awfully strong, and for the work you're doing, and I don't say that in a negative way. It's just very strong. What I would recommend doing would just be to lighten that up a little bit, and just put what the company does. And then same thing here. Like you start talking about lien law, foreclosure, business representative, and collections. I'm assuming because you did the tax law society and you have an accounting background that you're also interested in maybe doing tax or something along those lines. When you start putting things about litigation, trust and estates, and all these other practice areas on there, that can also scare people away. And I don't say that in a negative way. But I would just say got exposure to litigation, trust and estates, and corporate related work, or was exposed to corporate. Don't just say something along those lines. And so you don't need to go into a lot of detail, because you don't want to point people in a direction. Everyone's happy to take a chance on a law student. They don't care what your experience is really. You do, but they're not really that interested. They're just interested if you seem excited, you're willing to work for a price that they're happy about, and they like it, and that's it. And then you say I partook in a court proceeding. That's nice. You want always resumes. You need to use plain language, like how people talk. You wouldn't want to say partook in a court proceeding. You just want to say, and even attended court proceedings. Probably all these descriptions of what you're doing. I would recommend everyone. The problem is what's happening with all this is these people, the people that are reviewing your resume, are being pointed in all these different directions. So here they're being pointed in directions of working in brokers, and they're being pointed in trust and estates and litigation and deposition, residential, financial report, all that recruited and trained. Okay, I guess you did. So I would just say wholesale manager. So just don't go into a lot of detail. There's nothing wrong, by the way, especially for law students, not going into a lot of detail. People need to look at your resume, and they need to get people need to be on the set of something. So they want to read your resume and say, I get it. This person wants to do this. That's how you need to do it. So here, the problem with this particular law student resume, make sure you always fix. The problem with this is that it doesn't read like you want to do one thing. It reads, there's just a bunch of stuff going on. So that's the problem there. So people want to see one thing. And that's the problem with all these resumes to some extent that we've been looking at. This person was an IP attorney, and they became a in-house counsel where there's nothing really on here about IP. And then they're trying to say that they have experience with executive advising and growing companies and all this stuff, and litigation. And here's some patent infringement. I would put this at the top, anything to do with IP, and then de-emphasize the other stuff. And then this person saying, I do intellectual property, business, real estate. So all of these resumes from the standpoint of most employers are going to be difficult for an employer to grab onto. If this person had done nothing, if this person wants to be in real estate, then, they might talk about real estate here, try to talk about real estate here, and talk about some real estate work for the Young Man's and Young Women's Hebrew Association, and then the Lazarus and Lazarus talk. But you typically want to have some sort of pattern and consistency in the resume, because again, every law firm wants to know if you'll do the job long term. So if they do see a long term interest in something that you have, they're going to like that.